Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Wynn's Kitchens podcast, where I share my journey of starting a natural Asian sauce business and the people that are helping me along the way. I'm your host, Wynn Austin, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Wynn's Kitchen. In today's episode, I want to share how I came up with the idea of starting Wynn's Kitchen. I get asked this question all the time. And the truth is, I've always dreamt of working with food, but I knew I never wanted to have a restaurant. And originally, I dreamt of opening a cooking class out of my house, like Sam the Cooking Guy, which, if you're in San Diego and beyond, I'm sure you've heard of him. But of course, the idea didn't work out. At the time, my oldest daughter, Brielle, was just a baby, and it would have been way too disruptive to my family life. So I scratched the idea and I was at peace with it. And I figured, you know what? I love food and cooking, but it's just going to be my hobby. Until 10 years later, after I had my second child, Audrina, I started experiencing some health issues. It wasn't anything specific that I could really pinpoint. I remember telling the doctors and my friends, I felt really anxious. I felt like I had had a difficult time handling stress, which I've never had that problem before. And I just didn't feel like myself. One of the other symptoms is that my throat felt like it was really tight. It honestly felt like someone had their hands on my throat, and it was so uncomfortable to talk on the phone. I just sounded so stressed, and, it's not really good when you're in sales. Um, at the time, I also didn't realize that those were symptoms of an anxiety attack. And to make matters worse, my doctor told me that my blood pressure was high, and if it didn't improve in the next month, I'm going to have to go on prescription medication. This news was so devastating to me because I was in my mid 30s. I was an avid tennis player and a regular at Orange Theory, and we mostly ate at home. I took pride in making dinners for my family, and I thought we ate fairly healthy. We never really eat fast food unless we're on a road trip. And I started sharing my frustrations and some of my symptoms with my girlfriend, Natalie. And she mentioned to me that she went to a holistic doctor that got her on the Whole 30 diet to help reset her gut health and hormones. And of course, it actually helps you lose weight as well. So, I was so desperate. I even went to the ear, throat, and nose specialist, and they came back, and all they told me was that I have allergies. And I knew that wasn't the case. So when my friend Natalie told me about Whole 30, I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know about the keto or paleo, but I was desperate. So I started looking into it. And the biggest takeaways are, on those diets, you have to eat real food. You have to cut out alcohol, sugar, soy, and gluten. And I really wanted to feel better. So I decided to give it a try, for 30 days. Before this journey, I never looked at labels. I thought, I cook with a lot of fresh vegetables, that's eating healthy, and that was enough. So I started having to look at the labels, and I was shocked when noticed that all the sauces and condiments in my fridge, that I can no longer eat any of them. So for the first week, I kept our meals really simple. We had protein, a side of salad, squeeze of lime juice, olive oil, balsamic vinegar. And after a week, I was struggling. I mean, my background's Vietnamese. I mostly cook Asian food, all kinds of Asian food like Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, Korean dishes. That's my jam. And I couldn't have any of it because all the Asian sauces are mostly sugar, soy, they have gluten, they're made with bad oils, tons of artificial preservatives. Heck, I even saw warning labels on some of the jars that said this may cause cancer. I couldn't even believe I never paid attention to those labels before and never saw it. But you know what? It started to all make sense. My family has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes. Um, but is it only genetics when this is the stuff we're eating every day, which we think is healthy because, we douse our vegetables and protein in all these sauces? I really needed to figure out how to come up with a healthy Asian sauce so I can eat ASAP because I was dying from not having Asian food. So after 2 weeks of dousing my stir fry with only garlic and coconut aminos, I knew that wasn't going to cut it. So I started to think about what is the sauce that I love that have a lot of flavor. And my mind went back to my old days when I was a branch manager at Bank of America. And I was so busy that most of my lunch was 5 minutes of eating rice with a big spoonful of Sate Chili sauce, which is a Vietnamese sauce. The satay sauce that I used to buy was out of the question, of course. It has soybean oil, it's sugar, preservatives, a lot of ingredients I couldn't even pronounce. So I started researching how to make satay sauce at home, and I was able to swap out ingredients. For example, I replaced soy sauce with coconut aminos. I did not add any sugar. And coconut aminos has a natural sweetness to it already. I also swapped out the bad oils and I bought fresh lemongrass, garlic, shallots, fresh peppers. Those are all the flavors that I love. Like in Vietnamese cooking, we eat a lot of lemongrass. So in my kitchen, I put all the ingredients in a food processor. I cooked up my very first jar of satay sauce. And the first batch was this tiny 2 quart pot, which I store the sauce in a mason jar and I popped it in the fridge. And I started putting the satay sauce on everything. It tasted way better than the unhealthy stuff I used to buy. And it was my lifeline on this whole 30 journey. I literally put on everything. I ate it with my salmon, my steak. I made cauliflower rice, and the satay sauce actually made it taste good because on Whole 30, you can't really eat processed carbs. So, no rice or pasta. I was so excited about it. I would share and post pictures on Facebook and to not only share what I'm cooking, but I was sharing my whole 30 journey to help keep myself accountable, right? To stay on track. And I just have a natural love of sharing food. So, to my surprise, after 3 weeks, my brain fog started to clear. I've suffered from eczema my whole life, and my eczema had just disappeared. The pressure in my throat disappeared. And at my checkup at the 4 week mark, my blood test came back normal, and my blood pressure was in normal range. So I never had to go on prescription medications, thank goodness. Um, this really was the first time in my life that I discovered the power of food as medicine and how our gut health impacts our body and mental health. It was such a big shock to me when I started getting messages and texts from friends, my tennis team members, my neighbors. They were all asking me for a jar of Wynn sauce. They would say, Wynn, I saw your post on your chili sauce and I just learned that I'm allergic to soy now. Or Wynn, I'm going gluten free. I saw the chili sauce you're making and you said it's gluten free. Or Wynn, I'm trying to cut back on sugar. Next time, when you make some sauce, can I get a jar? Oh my gosh, I was so excited. I mean, I love uh, cooking and I love sharing food. It's my love language. So I was so excited to share my sauce and feel like, wow, I'm giving them something that they couldn't buy from the grocery store because I couldn't find any sauce at the grocery store that I could buy that was healthy and didn't have sugar, soy, and gluten, and all that stuff. Um, so the craziest part was, people kept coming back and reordering for more. I mean, it was one thing if, I just thought, okay, they just want to try something new. But for 3 years, those original people kept coming back and asking for more Win sauce. And the list kept getting longer and longer and longer. And I started having people I didn't even know tracking me down for my Win sauce. And they told me, you know, I had so many people tell me, like, wow, you really should turn this into a business. Like, you have something special here. But how, you guys? I mean, I had no background on food manufacturing. I didn't know where to start or what the first step was. How do I make it shelf life stable? How do you know that it's food safe? And how do I sell it outside of porch pickup? I had no idea how to get my food, like how, the grocery stores sell product. I have no idea how to get it on the shelf to the grocery stores. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to scratch the idea of turning it into a real business. Like every time I started researching, it was so overwhelming and I just didn't think I could do it. So, in the next episode, I'll share with you what changed my mind and the very first baby steps I took in turning Wynn's Kitchen into a real business and building it into a household brand. But for now, this brings us to the end of today's episode for Wynn's Kitchen. And I hope you've enjoyed the story of how I got the idea for Wynn's Kitchen's first product, the Sate Chili sauce. And remember, every great business starts with a small idea and the courage to take the very first step. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Please leave us a review on Apple. It helps others like you find our podcast. And for healthy recipes, please feel free to check out our website, winskitchen.com. I'll put the link for it in the show notes. And you can also connect with me on Instagram at Wynn's Kitchen. That's my social media of choice, and I'm on there daily. I'm always sharing what I'm up to, where I'm going, and what I'm cooking up. So, thank you again for listening. And until next time, keep cooking up your dreams. You'll never know when it turns into a reality.